Do you have trouble teaching students how to use watercolor? In this video, I have 5 watercolor projects for you that are for really any skill level that'll just give your student the experience and the confidence they need in the medium of watercolor. Hi, I'm Mary. I have 20 plus years of teaching art experience, and teaching watercolor is one of my favorite things to teach. So here are some tips / projects to just kind of get you a little head start in that department, because it is kind of a frustrating material to use. So let's dive in so I can show you those projects now, and maybe it'll be your favorite medium to teach too. So the first project is watercolor to ink. So basically putting watercolor blobs on a piece of paper and turning them kind of into cute things. So they could be cats, they could be birds, they could be monsters, little hedgehogs, fish, seashells, so many things, right? But basically your students don't need to have any skills other than how to put water with color on paper in a blob. It's like the simplest place to start. Obviously, it might include a little bit of drawing skill for some of these added things you might do with ink after the watercolor dries, but you're just doing these little blob shapes in whatever colors you want, and then after it dries, adding details to make it into a character or an animal or whatnot. Second project is ink to watercolor. So drawing some loose shapes, maybe there are things like fruits or vegetables. Maybe you're doing like a full page study of fruits and veggies. Maybe it's cute little cupcakes or popsicles. Those can have very simple outline shapes, right? Maybe some fish. This is just a fun way to start with ink as almost like your own personal coloring book idea, and then adding watercolor on top of the ink to just add a little color. It doesn't have to stay inside the lines. Honestly, it looks even better if you just have this looseness to it. This gives your students some practice with, again, putting watercolor onto paper, watching what happens, feeling that control or lack thereof, which is honestly the problem with watercolor sometimes, is just teaching students that you kind of have to learn how to manipulate the water and make it do what you want it to do, but also understanding how it works. The third one is fill the page with geometric shapes. So this is practicing maybe different watercolor techniques and control. So how do you do glazes? How do you do flat washes? How do you do graded washes? How do you do maybe some masking you do ahead of time? Maybe you do some salt, but it's all basic shapes and basic colors. Just practicing some different techniques. Maybe you do some wet on wet as well, filling in areas with water and then plopping in different colors to see what happens, right? But keeping the shapes really geometric and filling the page. I think that's kind of the goal with this one, is really try to fill the page. Let some of that negative space come through, but how do you creatively build a composition with these geometric shapes? Letting the watercolor sort of lead the way. The fourth project is wet on wet circles. So this is basically just painting circles and letting them touch each other on the edges, different sizes, but playing with color, letting that color seep into other circles. It's just a skill to understand with watercolor, is that, you know, you can't control it as much as you think, and when you don't want to control it, this is the kind of thing that can happen that's really beautiful and fun. So giving them some of that practice with wet on wet in just a really simple way with some basic shapes. And then number 5 is watercolor glazing circles. So again, I'm going with basic shapes here because, again, this is for any skill level. So starting with a light layer of watercolor, letting that completely dry. You can use a blow dryer, you can come back to it. It's a good in-between project. But basically letting that dry and going back over with a different color, maybe of the same thickness, a little bit offset from the first one. And you're just going to do this until you've built up these layers, learning how to glaze and put down a layer without mixing it too much that you're going to pull up the layer that was underneath it, because that happens a lot with watercolor. Again, another thing to practice. You can do that with some of these other projects. You can do some lifting, intentional lifting, or intentional masking, whatever. But this one is just fun because you get to see this depth build from layer to layer and glazing those flat washes on top of each other to just see the transparency of the paint. So I hope you found these 5 projects fun and simple enough for really any of your students. Give me some tips in the comments or suggestions, or let me know if you used any of these, and I would love to read that and see how it went for you. Please join my waitlist down in the description below to just be a part of my newsletter that I send out every month, so that you can kind of get some more in-depth ideas and help for your classes as an artist and an art teacher. So don't forget to do that down in the description below. But thanks again for watching, guys. Give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. We'll see you next time. Bye.